Hey, ladies and gents, welcome back to the Fairway Performance Podcast. Today I'm joined by a fellow Aussie. He's the second fellow Aussie I've had on the podcast, which is a real treat to have someone actually in my time zone to talk to and not organising at weird, odd hours of the day. But I'm joined by a man by the name of Ewan Porter. And Ewan, I'll get to give a little brief history of his, forte into the world of golf and how he got started and where everything began for him. But through my little bit of research, he really interested me because of the work that he's currently doing with junior golfers in Australia and also the playing history that he had. I actually mentioned your name to my business partner in my gym, and I said, "Have you ever heard of a guy named Ewan Porter?" And he said, "Yeah, he's the pro golfer, the Aussie pro golfer." So you're pretty much a household name here in Australia, especially for some of the golfers of a similar age to you. But did you want to give us a quick intro, Ewan, and say good day to the audience and give us a rundown of how you got started in golf and how that's looking for you now?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Sean, of course. Look, I mean, I think probably similar to most young people in Australia, I grew up playing most sports. I was infatuated with anything outdoors, the beach and rugby league and little athletics and cricket, of course. But started playing golf when I was about 10 or 11. And how did I get into it? I guess my dad played. He played off about an 8 or 9 handicap. He hit the ball a long way and was very passionate about the game. But I'd come home from school. He'd come home from work. We were lucky enough to have a decent-sized backyard, maybe 20, 25 metres long. And he'd chip a few balls in the backyard, and I was playing cricket at the time, so I'd stand up the other end and try and catch them. And after a while, I said, well, can you give me a go? Let me try and hit it. And eventually just got the bug that way and started playing at a 9-hole par 3 golf course in a little under 12 competition. And I used to do that after little athletics on a Saturday, so I was pretty busy on the weekends, and I'd play rugby league Sundays, but just loved the game. Became, I think, any sport that I've ever been passionate about, and tennis included, I just become very inquisitive. I become a bit of a geek, a bit of a tragic, as we like to say, and like to know all about the history of the sport. And pretty much, after the age of about 13, 14, every day after school, I'd be down at the golf club, and I was lucky enough to grow up at Cronulla Golf Club in Sydney, which had a big junior membership, and we'd all be down there after school. And I think that helped sort of elevate my enthusiasm and, as the years wore on, because we had something in common. We'd go down there after school and we'd have putting competitions, chipping competitions. We'd play 9 holes. We didn't have great practice facilities at Cronulla, but I think that actually worked in our favour because it got us out on the golf course. It got us playing games and being competitive against one another. And we'd stay down there until our parents picked us up at dusk. And it was great fun. I just reflect so fondly upon my journey into golf as a junior, and it was a great time. There was no scar tissue there, which developed a little bit later in my professional career, but great times.
Yeah, and so that's a pretty late start, I guess, for some people who've made it as professionals and played, some level of professional golf. How soon did you sort of realize that you had a bit of a future in golf and you're going to go down that path of, trying to play professionally? Because it's easy when you're chipping balls with mates and putting on the putting green to, practice putting for the Masters and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But how soon after did maybe the club pro push you or get you going down that route?
Yeah, look, I was 16 when I realized that I wanted to do it for a living. I was probably 13 when I realized I was decent at this sport. I got my handicap down very quickly, which, to be honest, that happens. Any junior golfer who has potential will generally start in C grade and they'll get their handicap down to A grade fairly quickly, and then it kind of becomes stagnant. It's not easy to continue that progress, but got my handicap down from 24 to 2 in the space of 12 to 18 months. Just played a lot of golf and practiced a lot and got better naturally. But when I was 16 and started playing in state teams and doing well in not just junior events, but big amateur events and playing golf with professionals locally, realised that I had the talent to do it, but yeah, I was pretty naive and ignorant. Even when I did turn pro at the age of 19, I realised there was a lot more to it than just your basic talent level. It's an entire package trying to play professional golf for a living. But yeah, I'd say about 16, I realised that was my career.
Yeah. And then, like, obviously what the pathway looked like then as opposed to what it looks like now. Like, how do you actually, go on to tour? Like, how do you, because I've heard friends, pass around the hat for different juniors to put them to different events and stuff. Like, it's a very big investment to get started. So how did that look? How many years ago was that now? Like about 20-ish years ago?
It does
25?
it does make me feel very old. Yeah, 20. Well, look, when I first started playing, it was actually 30 years ago. That's crazy to think. When I started playing all the junior events and traveling around a lot, 25 years ago, and I'd travel around with all the junior golfers, and we'd just play whatever was available around New South Wales and then around the country eventually when we were 15, 16. And it was, like I said, it was good times. It was competitive, but we had a lot of fun. And yes, it is expensive. I was ignorant and blind to it at the time because, I didn't, sounds terrible. I didn't care about money at the time. I just wanted to play golf. That was something that my parents were taking care of. But I certainly am very grateful for their investment in me early on. But I think they probably sensed that, there was an opportunity there for me to carve a career out of the game. And I threw all my eggs into one basket. I think from the age of 16, all I ever envisioned in my life from that point on was becoming a top 10 golfer in the world and dominating on the PGA Tour. And I don't think I would have ever really foreseen the pathway the path that my career has taken. And in saying that, I always did have a bit of an interest in the media side of it, and it wasn't something I really planned on around that time of my life, because all I wanted to do was play on tour, and that continued right through to my late 20s when I started getting a little bit sick of the game and looking at other avenues and opportunities available. But really, it all comes back to everything I'm doing now. It all comes back to the fact that I played golf for a living, and by playing golf for a living, it created these opportunities that are available to me now, and the networking that I did while I was playing.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. Like, there's something to be said for like not having a plan B and just wholeheartedly pursuing something with all of your passion and enthusiasm. And like, sure, it's what we're told at school, like, you're pretty stupid because you don't have that second option, or what's your fallback? Like, what are you studying or whatever? But in doing that, I think people see that and they know that you're the kind of person who has those, drivers and the dedication to be able to succeed in anything they pursue, really, especially if it's only a small jump to become, go down the media side of golf, because you've already developed half of the relationships you need to, because you've maybe been interviewed by these people or followed around by the camera, and you're comfortable in front of the camera and whatnot. So it's not a huge jump. I think, people going into business and those types of things, the reason they succeed in that outside of golf is, again, the dedication and everything they've put into succeeding in it in the first place. The couple of accomplishments I want to call out in my short Wikipedia search for you, because I didn't actually know if you'd had any pro wins or things like this. So and I didn't know how your career went. I'd heard your name before and obviously seen social media, and actually hear your voice on the European Tour broadcast a little bit. I think, have you done any PGA Tour events as well?
Yeah, but I did PGA Tour did the commentary over there for 2 or 3 years prior to COVID, and then did quite a few events last year as well, and heading back to the US in about 5 weeks from now to do a little bit more. But I'm alternating my commentary between Europe, US, and Australia at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, because I'd heard your voice, but I didn't know about your playing history. So you played, not obviously with much success, in the 07, 08, and 2010 Open. Amazing that you actually qualified for the field in the first place, but not making the cut in those events. But you had 2 wins. One of them was in Australia on the Australasian Tour, Moon and Links, was it? And the second one was on the web.com, or was there two in the US and one in Australia?
One in Australia, one in the US. They were both part of it's called the Corn Ferry Tour now, which is just below the PGA Tour. One was 2008, one was 2010, and very, very, very special moments in my life. And once again, look, I mean, everything I'm doing now, winning does a lot for you. Having a win on your resume does a lot. I think I missed like 70% of cuts that I played as a professional golfer, which was a lot. I was very much feast or famine when I played, but I could have had 1,000 top tens and no wins, and it doesn't carry the same weight as having won. And I wasn't thinking of that when I was playing, because I was thinking I'd go on to have more wins, but it's certainly something I'm very proud of now, having won, because I beat a lot of players who went on to win major championships and dominate on the PGA Tour, and very, very special times. And like I said, just very, very proud I was able to get over the line, and it has given me the opportunity to go on and do what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's amazing. Good work. Like it's I know how much hard work it takes. Having seen a few friends from junior golf, make it through the ranks into the Australian Tour, and just how hard it is to even crack it in the Australian Tour, and then to go into the US and compete in some of these other events. So that's amazing. I just love that. Now with that, obviously, like we've heard a little about your journey, going into commentating and transitioning to that. But I also want to talk about the work that you're doing with the juniors in Australia now, because like we talked when we started, or just before we hit record, and I think it's very admirable what you're doing now, the pathway that you're on with some of the events that you're hosting in Australia and helping out with. But you're trying to make that pathway for some of the juniors a bit easier than what it was for you. So did you want to share firstly what that is called, and how that initiative started, and what it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's something that I'm probably more proud of than anything I achieved in my own career. And it's also something that's rapidly developing as well. We've come a long way. When I say we, I've got a small team of people around me. There's 3 or 4 of us that are part of the team of the Adidas Junior Sixes series, and we all sort of complement each other with the skill set that we bring to the table. But for me, it was I'm an only child, and my dad passed away in September 2018, and it was really I'd always had an idea that I wanted to do something in junior golf, but I really wasn't sure how I'd go about it. I certainly didn't want to host or put on an 18-hole junior event for a tea towel. There's a million of those. I wanted to do something different and meaningful. Now, when my dad passed, it was the catalyst for me to really sort of get my butt into gear and do something to honour him, because he was such a big supporter of me, not just in golf, but everything I ever did. And I was lucky enough in October 2019, after a few different phone calls and meetings, to get Cronulla Golf Club, where I grew up in Sydney, on board to host a 2-day tournament. And we had the best junior golfers in Australia playing at the time. Hayden Hopewell, who became one of the best amateurs in the world and has since turned pro, he defeated Elvis Smiley in our final. And Elvis Smiley's obviously one of the hottest young prospects in Australian golf at the moment. And Harrison Crowe, who's playing the Masters in a couple of weeks, he played. So I think one of the greatest things for me over the last 3.5 years since hosting that first event is being able to develop a relationship with the next generation of stars from a very early age. And, I get to know them and vice versa. They trust me. During COVID up in Queensland, where my mum lives, I spent a little bit of time up there, and I played a few rounds of golf with Adam Scott. He was back for a little while, and, Scotty and I were talking about the opportunities now for these young players, because he won the Australian Junior Championship back-to-back years in 97, 98. And he didn't get, when I say he didn't get anything for it, he got a bit of recognition for winning the event, but he didn't get any exemptions or invitations. I've been able to, I guess you could say, leverage my connections, my network with the PGA Tour of Australasia and the Women's PGA Tour here in Australia, the CEOs of those tours and the tournament directors, to be able to create these opportunities and pathways for the players. And I think it's in the last 3 years we've given out something like 28 professional tournament invitations, including a couple in Europe. And Jeffrey Guan, who's our current Adidas Junior Sixes champion, he's already had 3 top 10s this year alone on the PGA Tour of Australasia. And probably it could be my proudest moment was one of the invitations that Jeffrey received in September last year for winning the Junior Sixes final at Kingston Heath was to play in the Western Australian Open, maybe about 5 or 6 weeks after that. Well, Jeffrey played in the final group on Sunday, and I was over there commentating, and I interviewed him before the round and out on the golf course, and that was very, very special for me because it really, I think it just gave credibility to what I'm doing to be able to create that pathway for Jeffrey that wouldn't have otherwise existed. And that really is sort of how it all evolved. It started as something to honour my dad, but also after that first event, which was just a 2-day event, I saw an opportunity there to create a tour, if you like, a series of events that's just currently not available in Australia. I mean, our top amateurs don't have anything to play for 5 months in the middle of the year, and a lot of them travel overseas, which is great. I'm all for that. But it's also a very, very expensive exercise, and a lot of the parents can't afford that. So I've essentially created through this tour, we have 15 events throughout Australia, 1 in New Zealand. So that's 16 more playing opportunities for these players here in Australia. And we've got an event in India this year, and we've got, looks like next year we're going to have a series in Asia as well. So, it's exciting. They're all World Amateur Golf Ranking events. And in a nutshell, like I said, I mean, I'm very proud of what I've achieved in my career in playing and broadcasting, and it's all allowed me to, do what I'm doing now with junior golf and elite amateur golf. But nothing makes me prouder or more satisfied than being able to give back like I am now.
Yeah, well, it's obviously the game of golf in general has helped you to get to where you are, and what you're doing. So to be able to give back, I guess, is everyone's journey, right? Like once you reach a sort of a pinnacle or the most that you can get out of something, it's like, how do I make it easier for the next generation? And who knows? Your little boy, couple of week old little fella, maybe he's taking up some of these exemptions in the future. Wouldn't that be a cool story to tell in like 20 years time?
Absolutely. I don't know, knowing the emotional roller coaster that I endured on the journey as a player, I'm not sure I'll be pushing him into it, but it is a great game to play. And of course, I'd love it if he had a golf club in his hand.
Yeah, my little fella, you can't see it back here, but he's 2 years old, and my wife's already bought him plastic clubs, and he's bashing balls up against the back fence and whatnot already. So I hope he continues on that journey, because he's driving it further than most 2-year-olds, I think.
As we're talking,
cool.
I can hear my little boy screaming in the background here. It reminds me of how I carried on when I was playing golf.
Oh, really? Yeah, we've all got stories like that. Clubs ending up in weird and awkward places in one piece or multiple pieces. But we don't want to go there just yet. Mate, the next thing I want to ask about is obviously you would have learnt a lot as a player on tour, preparing for events and getting ready for these things and playing practice rounds and pro-ams and just getting that experience in these big events. How are you using this, this platform of the Junior Sixes? How are you sort of instilling some of that information for them, whether, the juniors are mature enough to listen to it at that stage? Because I don't think we can probably self-admit that we were never mature enough as 18 to 20-year-old young males in Australia. You probably think, oh, what's this old bugger going to tell me? Like, I know what I'm doing. But what are you like? Is there any lessons you're trying to pass along or teach them along the way? Or obviously you're exposing Jeffrey to being interviewed on course in a final group on a Sunday and stuff in playing. But what are you talking with these guys about, and how are you sort of trying to be their mentor as well?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and appreciate you asking. Yeah, look, it's there's a lot that I learned, and I think with the access to the platforms and social media channels that the kids have now, I think they're able to see and witness what other players around their age group and their level are doing around the world, and how can, certainly with college golf in America and elite amateur golf in Europe, they're sort of the benchmarks. I think they're seeing what players are doing over there, and they're able to grasp what they need to do as well a little bit better in order to reach that level. But like I mentioned to you before, currently the schedule for junior golfers and amateur golfers in Australia, there's a 5-month block in the middle of the year where they don't play anything. Now, when they turn professional, how is that replicating what they're going to do as a professional golfer? When you're a professional golfer, you're going to play at bare minimum 15 4-round events per year, more likely somewhere between 25 and 30. So first and foremost, I understand that these juniors and elite amateurs, they're already playing 8 to 10 big 4-round events here in Australia. So by creating these 15 other events, they've now got an all year round schedule where they're not going to play every single event, but they're going to pick and choose what events they feel are best suited for them, which is exactly what you do as a professional. And they're going to learn by playing all of these events not just how to play under tournament conditions and tournament pressure, but also how to prepare for tournaments. And right now, when you've got a 5-month block in the middle of the year with nothing, they're going to invest all their energy into the events early in the year and maybe a couple at the back end of the year, and then taper off, not really do much in the middle of the year. That's not how it works as a professional golfer. You've got to be on song and ready to peak almost every single week. So it's really, for them, it's all about understanding what works best for them and trying to conserve their energy week after week, because you certainly don't want to overdo it. It's very easy to do that as a professional golfer. And I think the other big thing that I can mentor them with is certainly my experiences over the past decade in the world of media. As a junior golfer and as an amateur golfer, typically the only times you do any form of public speaking, you win an event, you get up there and you thank your playing partners and the sponsors and the home club, and off you go. When you're a professional golfer, that's not reality. That's not going to happen. The only time you'll ever make a winner's speech is when you win a big tournament, and that doesn't happen very often, if at all. So the times that you are in front of the camera, you're going to be interviewed pre-tournament, maybe after a good round. Press conferences. It could happen at any time, and you've got to be prepared to answer questions on the fly that you're not comfortable perhaps answering, or you're not too familiar with. So I'm trying to get them comfortable in front of the camera. We've got a professional photographer and videographer at all of our events. We've got a media wall. They understand that all the videos they're doing, all the interviews they're doing, they're going to be posted to social media. So essentially the whole world can see it. And it's fantastic for their profile. It's brilliant for their brands. And now the fact that amateur golfers can earn endorsement money through the new rules that began this year, there's an opportunity for them to become more familiar with their brand. And that can be by being themselves, by being outgoing, by being engaging. And the kids are definitely getting much better at it. There's still a long way to go, but given where a lot of them were at a couple of years ago prior to doing this, there's definitely a lot of positive steps being taken.
Yeah, we just have to look at some of the younger Aussies that are starting to come out on tour now. Like obviously Minwoo Lee is a great example. His social media presence is quite cool. Like he's sort of the good vibes guy, and while his playing was not ideal for a Sunday, it was probably a very good learning experience for him at the Players just recently. A bit of a hard lesson that probably needed to be learned early in a career. But his social media is quite cool, and I imagine his endorsements and stuff from that are going to be, companies will align with, the content that he's putting out and the way that he talks and his attitude and that type of thing. And then you look at, Cam Smith, while he's not on the cameras as much these days, he's probably on his boat fishing a bit more than he is playing golf. But, with Original Penguin, that's a different brand to what everyone else has been. And he's really aligned with them and gone down that route. So it's interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see in the few years coming, like how that sort of ties into some of these juniors coming through the ranks, especially in Australia. We're 1/15 of the population of America, so there's a little less opportunity here for that type of thing. But with the events that you're hosting and sort of bringing up the grassroots level of amount of eyeballs going onto some of these golf tournaments and drawing more people and more funding and money to it, hopefully that also brings other sponsors to the table as well, and they can exploit that to their benefit, because it's only going to help Australian golf. So
Sure.
it's really cool. I love it. The next thing, so obviously preparing for a golf tournament as a professional golfer looks a certain way. You go out and you play, you maybe practice round on arrive at the tournament on a Monday, you practice rounds on a Tuesday, and you'll throw balls down and putt from all different angles and picture where the holes are going to be, and maybe they give you pin sheets or whatever. Wednesday you're playing at a pro-am and probably have to grit your teeth and bear who you're playing with sometimes, and sometimes they're fun. And then obviously Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's game time. Or for 70% of the time for you, it was Thursday, Friday was game time, and Saturday, Sunday, you're flying home.
I was a good boss. I gave my caddy the weekend off quite often.
Yeah, he earns a lot of money for only bloody half a week's work, that guy. So obviously there's a certain preparation for that. And we all sort of understand that. I want to get to know a little bit about the preparation that you do in the media now. Because, some of the comments and things that you talk about are quite thoughtful and well-researched. Like, where do you start when you are preparing for an event? And are you there on a Wednesday watching some of the guys play and seeing if, Rory's hitting it shit and you're like, okay, cool, Rory's going to have a hard week this week, or looking at the clubs in their bags? Like, what does it look like, your preparation for that? I'd love to know.
Yeah, everything you just mentioned there is all part of it, and it definitely helps. I mean, scouting the golf course, knowing the conditions, knowing the players, knowing the intricate details of what they're working on and how they're feeling, that really all helps. And I guess for me, I'm looking for a different angle all the time. And what that angle is might vary from day to day, from player to player. But I'm always looking to give the audience, give them some information on something they don't already know. It's very easy to tell a picture of what you can already see on the screen, but something that's a little less knowledgeable to the viewer is something that I'm trying to find. And I guess I'm thinking off the top of my head, the last event that I called was 3 weeks ago at the Indian Open, and Marcel Siem, the German, won, and he's a funny guy. He wears his heart on his sleeve more than probably anyone in professional golf, and you're on that emotional roller coaster with him, that journey with him while he's out there, and to be able to walk around with him the final day. And a couple of weeks prior to that, I interviewed him in Singapore when he made his 500th appearance on tour, and he just gave me a couple of quotes in that interview that I did with him in Singapore that I was then able to use in the winners interview after him. When it's chaos, there's thousands of people everywhere, other players spraying champagne, cameras everywhere, and it's very, like, for me in that role when I've got I've got a lot of adrenaline as well, and but to be able to use a couple of quotes from when I'd spoken to him previously, and even bumped into him at dinner one night in Thailand, I think it was, and had a beer with him. Just being able to use those little bits of information can really help convey a different message. And I was able to get, not that it was my goal, but I was able to get Marcel fairly emotional in his winner's speech, and it's always great to see that. Same thing, I remember interviewing Cam Smith when he won the PGA at Royal Pines in, I think it was 2018, and he'd gone back to back, and I might have been 2017, and he won his first one, and he was pretty emotional there and was fairly speechless after winning. But it's always, coming back to being able to give the viewer something they don't really know. And I think one thing that was detrimental to me as a player was that I overanalyzed. I overthought everything. There was always a million things going on in my brain, and I was coming up with all these different scenarios whilst I was playing. That was not good for me as a player. that has helped me. That mindset has helped me immensely in my broadcasting, because all these different pictures that I'm painting in my head, I'm then able to relay that to the viewer, which then creates, oh, I didn't know that, or a little bit of interest around a certain scenario developing. And yeah, at least I've been able to put something that, wasn't good in my playing career to good use now.
Yeah, well, it's just using the skills that you're good at. They might not be. It's just like tools in a tool belt, right? We've all got innate tools that we're good at, and why some people are great at interviewing and talking, and that's not really good when you're trying to hit a golf ball, because you're more interested in talking to your playing partners or analyzing stuff than actually hitting the shot yourself. Yeah, that's cool. Then, so with your current schedule of commentating, where to from here? I know you sort of briefly mentioned it before, but you're heading back over to the States to do a little stint over there. That's for the PGA Tour. Do you know what run of events that is, and where people will be able to hear your commentating?
Yeah, in May I'll be over there at the Wells Fargo Championship, the Byron Nelson, and the USPGA Championship the week after it. Typically all the stuff that I do in America is for PGA Tour Live. I'll be with ESPN at the PGA Championship at Oak Hill in New York, and then I've got another 3-week stint in August, just around the start of the FedEx Cup playoffs. And I'm actually moving to London for a few months with my wife at the end of May, just for a little sea change. She's on maternity leave, and I've got a little bit of work in Europe, so there's not too much going on in Australia at that time. I've got people to look after the Adidas Junior Sixes events here in Australia, so we'll go over there and have a little bit of an adventure. We had our honeymoon over there last year and had a great time, Emily and I, and this time we've got little Tommy, our son, in tow, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But as far as my schedule, my broadcasting schedule, that's something that moving forward will be something that I'll have to look into more carefully as well, because I can't be as selfish. I've got a family to think about now, and I can't go gallivanting for weeks on end. So I'll have to be a little more structured with what I do. But I'm very, very fortunate that I love it. It's something that it does come naturally to me. But they do say it's a job it's easy to do. Okay, but it's a difficult job to do really well. And whilst it does come fairly naturally, it's something that I do take pride in myself on working hard at, to just go that extra level and be, more astute. And, that's that old saying, if you job something you love, if you turn up to work and it's, something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's how I feel with what I do, both with the broadcasting and running the junior events. I'm passionate about the game of golf and the development and broadcasting, and very privileged.
Yeah, cool. I love it. It's great that you've got the opportunity to do that as well, to just move over to London for a bit and then do a bit of traveling for those US events. And I dare say the US PGA, I probably know what one of the main talking points will be during that week. Given that the field is going to have different players from different tours, etc. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and what goes on there. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
It's a very interesting landscape at the moment with all that, because I was over there broadcasting last year when it all was developing, and it's a very taboo subject. It's still that way. I think every single person involved with golf hopes that it gets sorted out soon, but certainly with me working for all the respective tours who are very anti-live, I'm not saying anything. I'm not allowed to say anything on the matter. But then you've got someone like Greg Norman running Live, who we all grew up idolising. Got mates like Cam Smith and Mark Leishman, who I've known for years and played a lot of golf with Leish growing up, who are playing in Live. Matty Jones, I grew up playing junior golf with. It is a difficult situation, because I don't begrudge any individual for doing what they're doing at all. Just because they went and signed with a different tour doesn't mean that I'm not going to be friends with them anymore. But I certainly hope, for the sake of really the fans, I think it's kind of alienating a lot of people what's going on. I really hope that it does get sorted soon for everyone's sake.
Yeah, I actually heard I listened to the Foreplay podcast with Adam Scott earlier today. I was just out for a walk, and just the way that he talked about it, like he still gets along with all the guys, and he doesn't blame anyone for making decisions for what they want to do for their family and everything else. It wasn't a decision that he wanted to go down, but I think that's where, you know, people sort of get their knickers in a knot, for lack of a better term, but that it's they're adults and they made their choices. So like, it's, you know, it is what it is. And the real awkward thing is, I guess, for that Adam Scott mentioned was, and that brings a lot of heat to it, is that there's lawsuits with players from each of those things that are going against each other. It's not just like the leagues are going against each other, or the tours, or whatever you want to call them. It's that, you know, he's suing him, and that's where it gets a bit muddy. And yeah, old Patrick Reed is just trying to sue every person that walks. But yeah, you should just worry about just not hitting the sand in the bunker before his backswing. But anyway, I didn't say that. Cool. The next thing, so just going into a bit more in the future in the junior sixes thing, where do you see it going? Like, obviously you've been able to get it to this level. Like, going from the ground to this has probably been a monumental effort to get it there. To get anything going with a little bit of inertia and to keep the wheel rolling obviously takes a shitload of effort. But now that you've got these partnerships, you've got these exemptions, you've got these events, hopefully some of the players like Jeffrey Wine are going to play, you know, decent golf and make it to the Sundays and stuff. And where do you sort of envision it, like, going in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, and what are you hoping for it?
Yeah, well, when I went up to commentate in Asia for the 3 weeks, which were all European or DP World Tour events last month, I set aside some time to have a couple of meetings up there with the commercial director of the DP World Tour, Ben Cowan, and also a guy called Stuart Cage from Player Relations, and then met with the Indian Golf Union when we were in India, and also the Thai Golf Association in Thailand. So it wasn't all just commentary up there. It was a lot of networking to try and expand what we're doing. And it looks like in 2024 we've got a series of events throughout Asia and India that's going to be incorporated under the one umbrella. And I think for me the goal is I've been lucky. I've been approached by Golf Canada. I've been approached by the AJGA in America to be involved. They have different models of how events look over there. I would have to come up with sponsorship dollars to put the event on their schedule. That's not something that I'm really interested in at the moment. We've got big opportunities to grow throughout Asia, the Middle East, and into Europe. And given the fact that at PGA Tour level, we've got a strategic between the PGA of Australia and the DP World Tour, and reciprocal playing exemptions and benefits for our players, I feel like with that already in place, that system already in place at professional level, having next level down for elite amateurs, having that similar sort of arrangement and agreement is very, very doable in the foreseeable future, if not the very near future. So India the PGA Tour of India have a strategic alliance with the DP World Tour. We have a strategic alliance with the DP World Tour. You know, I've got a series that looks like in India next year. We've got an event there this year. So there are certainly opportunities, and we've got terrific tournament directors here in Australia with Karen Lunn on the women's side and Nick Dasty, Kim Felton on the men's side, who are very progressive, very open-minded. They love creating opportunities for the young elite players coming through. So I can certainly see something happening here in the not too distant future, where there are avenues for players to play our elite amateur events here in Australia and get onto the Challenge Tour or the LET for the women, for example, and then the top amateurs in Europe come and play events in Australia. And you know, it benefits everyone in that way. We get more international recognition and create pathways for players here, and then vice versa. So, you know, if the Adidas Sixers can become the sort of the feeding ground for the breeding ground, for these young players to play their way onto a professional tour. And as you know, the biggest disadvantage we have in Australia here for young golfers is geography. In the US or Europe, they can turn to somewhere in their backyard and go play. You've got to go to the other side of the world here from Australia, and it can be a very lonely and expensive existence in doing that. So if you can basically play in your own backyard throughout Australia and then get a tour card that can somewhere overseas, that can alleviate a lot of the stresses that come with turning professional and the forks in the road and the hurdles that occur when that happens. So for me, that's the vision. I certainly think it can happen. I'd like to think that I've got the relationships to make that happen. Actually have some corporate support going forward as well. And I'm learning all the time with what I'm doing, but I do think that we can get there.
Yeah, cool. Are you seeking more corporate support? Like, are you trying to reach out to more people to, obviously, like, money's going to help a lot with this, but are you always in search of corporate partners or people that can contribute in some way? Or
I did probably maybe 12 months ago go through a period of actively seeking it out, but I am fortunate enough to have met some people in the golf circles here in Australia, and we've sort of got a group of 10 or 12 of us now who are not just looking at ways to support what I'm doing, but a way that we can support golf at all levels here in Australia, from professional golf right through to grassroots and getting golf into schools.
Wow.
It's something that we're looking at, sort of creating a package to be able to help with all that. So again, hopefully that's not in the not too distant future.
Yeah, maybe you could hit up Greg. He's probably got a little bit of money left over. The live guys could help you out. I've heard they've got a large budget. That sounds really cool, having it like going back to the grassroots as well, like getting kids into it in school, because that's how essentially I started. We like, I played a lot like you. Like my stepdad would go to Woodford Golf Course up in Queensland. It's like west of the Sunshine Coast essentially. And we'd go there and play some holes in the afternoon, and my mum would push the pram with my younger brother or sister in there, and we'd go around and play holes, or we'd sit at the driving range and hit balls. I actually had a 3-hole course in our backyard. We had half a rugby league field with posts, like wooden posts that would almost blow over in the wind. And it was either a 2 or a 3-hole course with, a mown-in temporary green, essentially, with a bamboo stick as a flag. But I could, like, hit golf balls up and down. But at that point, I wasn't taking it very seriously. It wasn't until we actually had a pro come to my school when I moved down to Brisbane. And I played at a course called Pine Rivers, which is super close to where Cam grew up and played all his golf at Wantima there. And we had this pro who was also named Sean, and he would always just come over to me and watch me because I played, all the different sports and could hit a ball and stuff. And he dragged me over to Pine Rivers and got me into playing there, just because I had a bit more interest in it than what the other kids did, I guess. But getting into schools just exposes kids to it. And mentioning this to, I think it was Mike Leonard, one of the US guys, a mental golf coach. Yeah. And a golf writer, and he said, "What? Like, you had it at school? Like, that's amazing. Like, we don't have access to that over here." So, I think that's another way to grow the sport massively. And you only took it up at 11, 12 years old, so actually going to the course. So there's still plenty of time to make a good golfer out of someone.
Yeah. There's a long way to go. But I think we can definitely get there. There's no question. We've got all the right contacts, both. Really all up the eastern seaboard and in WA as well, to, pretty much get the sport into schools almost immediately. And I'm sure most schools would be willing to jump on board as well.
Yeah, because my school did it as a term. Like, we did sort of 10 or 12 weeks of golf, and then we did 10 or 12 weeks of volleyball, and then we did soccer and other sports. Athletics was one of them. But yeah, you get all that exposure during health and physical ed at the school that I went to anyway. So it's a good spot to find out if someone really enjoys the sport and wants to get into it. Cool, mate. That's all my list of questions exhausted there. We've ripped through it fairly quickly, which is good for you, because you can go and change some pooey nappies again. But
we can keep going for another 2 hours if you want. That's okay.
Hopefully your missus didn't hear that. Mate, before we wrap it up, did you just want to give the guys a bit of info on where they can find out about the Junior Sixes and where the events are sort of being held in the next little while, and yeah, if someone wanted to contact you for sponsorship or something like that, or to get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on Instagram and Facebook, just Adidas Junior Sixes. Instagram's our most prominent platform there. I'm always fairly active on myself at Ewan Ports on Twitter and Instagram. But yeah, we've got a website, juniorsixes.com. That's in development at the moment. So hopefully in the next few weeks, the website will be back up and running. But the schedule's on the Instagram page. We've got events through Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, for the rest of the year. One in India, as I mentioned, and then our world final is at Terry Hills in Sydney in November, and there'll be, well, last year our final at Kingston Heath, there were 12 professional tournament exemptions on offer, 4 Adidas scholarships, a couple of Titleist scholarships as well, and we'll have players from several different countries competing. It's it really it's right before the tour season kicks off here in Australia, so I'm sure we'll get some terrific publicity around that event, and certainly the more people that come out and watch, the merrier. We just had a 36-hole event at the Australian on Tuesday. It was the first time that the Australian had ever hosted a junior golf tournament, and we're very privileged that the Adidas Junior Sixes was that event, and yeah, it was extremely well received. We had some media out there, and some terrific golf being played. I mean, 5 players finished the 36 holes under par at the Australian, where the Australian Open is this year. And it was pretty cool and breezy off the back tees. Nothing to be... These kids are very, very good. And more importantly, they have fun, and they're really good, polite, young men and women as well. And it's a thrill for me to be at the events.
Yeah. I had a look through your stories during the week and saw some of the names that you had up on the thing, and a few of the names I definitely recognise from me playing in some Varden events in Sydney here, and my name being underneath the cut line and theirs being significantly higher above the cut line at under par, and me having a big plus sign in front of my scores. So yeah, it was good to see them getting to play in an event like that and the exposure and whatnot. So mate, I absolutely love what you're doing. I'm looking forward to hearing your commentary for the events over in the US. If hopefully KO in Australia has the commentary that you do and whatnot.
Yep.
Sweet. And yeah, then when you're actually back in Australia, whether that's later this year or whatever, then we need to get out for a hit somewhere.
Sounds good to me. I've got new clubs about 2 months ago, and they've been collecting dust ever since. So I'm not sure with the newborn little Tommy. I'm not sure when the next game will be, but I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Mate, it's networking. It's all part of work, right?
Absolutely. Write it off.
Cool. All right. Thank you for that, mate. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, Sean. Thanks, mate.